Have you ever stopped to ask yourself, what if everything I've been taught about money is a complete lie?
Last time we exposed some of the biggest money myths keeping people stuck. But we're not done yet because there's even more so-called truths that might be holding you back.
We're talking about the financial rules you followed your entire life without question. The one that sounds so smart, but could actually be keeping you broke.
Like the ones that hard work will make you rich or all debt is bad. Maybe some of these ideas that you hold so dearly are keeping you from the goal you cherish.
Today, we're breaking down more money lies, exploring why they don't hold up, and showing you how to take back control of your financial future.
So now that you're here, ready to rethink everything, let's get into today's episode.
So today, Dominic, we are in part 2 of the biggest money lies that I have heard over my decade in wealth management. In our first 2 podcasts on Monday and Friday, we only made it through 6. I was thinking this would be maybe a 2-parter podcast. We're looking more like 4. So today we're going to be breaking down the other money lies that I've heard. We currently have a list of 17, and that list continues to grow as I meet with people and have different thoughts in my head. So today I'd like to go ahead and start off with number 7 of our money lies. How's that sound to you?
I'm excited. Yeah, I was surprised how long it took us on the first pod because we were just enjoying each one of them, getting deep into it. And I highly recommend going back and checking out Monday's and Friday's pod where we recapped Monday's episode. But yeah, number 7, what do we got for one of our top lies that you've really seen in your financial practice?
Yeah, one of the biggest ones I've heard is you should always save 10 to 15% for retirement. And I think that this is a good rule of thumb. But again, whenever we use the words always or never, that's probably the only times you're always wrong, is when you're using those words. Now, 10% used to be a really, really good one, like a good rule of thumb. Back in the day when people had pensions, when Social Security was not subsolvent, we didn't have to worry about all the things that we do now. But now that pensions have gone the way of the birds, Social Security, in my estimation, our generation, millennials, and I think you're Gen Z, right?
Something like that.
You're going to have that Social Security by the time you retire. I truly believe so, but I do think it's going to be cut significantly. So you'll still be getting money, but it won't be what you paid into it, which just kind of sucks. But it is what it is. We control what we can control. So if those 2 things are gone, and we're living substantially longer than we used to, because it used to be retired at 65, and you're supposed to be dead by 67, dead by 68. Dead by maybe 72. But now people are retiring at 65 and living well into their 80s or 90s. And who knows where that's going to be in the future. So if you're living decades longer than you're historically supposed to with a 10% savings rate or 15% savings rate, that might not cut it anymore.
So what you're saying is rather than saving 10 or 15%, save a lot more, right? Save as much as you can. And is there like a sweet spot? And I know we talked a lot about, this is the rule. This is the go ahead, right? This is the blanket rule, right? We don't like blanket rules because everybody's lives are so much different. But is there kind of a number that we should strive for retirement? I know for savings, for emergency funds, that might be a little bit different, but what is there like a number I should be hitting? I know it's somewhere between, 1 and 100, right? I know it's not 100. I know it's not 1%. So it's somewhere in the middle. So is there any kind of idea on what number that would be?
Yeah, of course. You're going to hate this answer.
It all depends.
It depends. It depends on so many things, right? It depends on your goals. It depends on your income. It depends on how early you start. It also depends on when you want to retire. Some people may need to save more, while others may need to save significantly less. It really depends. There are some people who are saying, hey, I want to work till the day that I die. And there are some people like me who say, I am okay with working till the day that I die, but on the things that I want to. And I'm willing to take less pay to work the way that I want to work. So I know everyone hates this answer. I get it because I hate it too. It depends, because the truth is there are no solutions. There are only trade-offs. And what you're willing to trade off is going to be dependent from you to me, to our listener, to 1,000 different people. You're going to get 1,000 different answers. There is no objective truth on how much money to hold. I kind of think of it like this. Maybe our listener can think of, they got in a fight with their spouse, their significant other, a friend, about how to load the dishwasher. Hey, you're loading the dishwasher wrong. Why are you so dumb? The way that I load the dishwasher is the right way, and you're loading it incorrectly. Well, is there an objective truth to how to load the dishwasher? No, they're both just different. Neither way is right, neither way is wrong. And it comes to the exact same thing of how much money do we save for retirement? Somebody might say, hey, I'm saving 12%. And somebody might be like, that is objectively wrong. I'm saving 22%. My way is the right way. But in truth, neither way is right, neither way is wrong. But people get so defensive on their way because whenever they say that somebody else might be right, what they're really afraid of is the fact that they might be wrong. And again, we don't know what that truth is because there is no objective truth as to how much money you should save. Because objectively, if all humans disappeared tomorrow, Thanos came and snapped and said, all of you are done, retirement savings, money, all of these things won't continue to exist.
I think that's a really great analogy, the dishwasher, because like you said, there's so many different ways to load the dishwasher, but there's not really one correct way. Steven Dishwasher, the founder of Dishwashers International, he didn't write a manual on, you have to put the knives in first, put them down so you don't cut yourself, and the forks and the spoons, and then the bowls and the plate. There was no manual for it. And I love that idea, that analogy that like, hey, we all have a common, maybe endpoint, a general area, but there's a million different ways to walk down that road. And like you said, some of us need a little bit more savings because, we might have more expenses. Maybe we feel better with a bigger cushion. Maybe we have more bills, right? And some of us are starting later in life, so they might be different. So this is the one time where it's like, okay, I'll accept it depends, right? It is the only time I'll accept it depends, because for me to say like, no, Chris, give me under your head 25%. Is that good? Is that good? It's like, no, it's not. It's not good. It's not bad. It just is. It depends.
Yeah.
Because it could be good, could be bad. So,
and if someone did put a gun to my head and say, put an amount, I'm going to say as much as you possibly can. Yeah. As much as you possibly can, because there's two sides of this trigger, right? It's how much money are you making? How much money are you spending? And unfortunately, these things often seem to go in lockstep. The more money I make, the more money I spend. And they just happen unanimously. And then unfortunately, the how much money you spend begins to, with most people, outpace how much they're making as they go higher and higher and higher, which gets scary up to a point. Then, they're making like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos money. Again, it outpaces it again. You can't spend that much. But for the average person, maybe they're making $60,000 and they're spending 40. Then they make 70 and they start spending 50. Then they make 80 and they're spending 60. And then you go to 90, now they're spending 70, and then 75. And they keep on going up and up and up, and they can't realize what's changing, what's happening. But imagine if you went through your entire life, you heard this message of financial independence when you were 18, 19 years old. Remember what it was like when you were in college and you were okay with ramen every night? You were okay with roommates. You were okay with living in a one-story apartment, all of that stuff. And you were able to keep that lifestyle back to what it is and be able to make $50,000, $60,000 and learn to be happy on $30,000. I don't like rules. I don't like specific percentages, but I can guarantee you, I have high level of accuracy that if you can save 50% of your income, regardless of what happens in the stock market, regardless of what happens in the economy, regardless of what happens with your work situation, your health, you will be okay, because you will learn to live off substantially less than what you make. And you're going to help yourself from two sides of the equation. Number one, you'll need less money to retire. You'll need less money to survive. And with your expenses being substantially lower, it's going to help you a lot more because you're going to need less to be able to call yourself financially independent. So I know everyone hates this answer. They hate hearing it depends. But in truth, it really does. And you need to figure out how much that means for you. Because if I tell you, Dominic, I want you to have a 50% savings rate, most people are just going to shut down and not do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Right? We just do it a little bit at a time. And I totally agree. I totally agree. So that was number 7, the money lies that you've been told you should always save 10 to 15%. And the real number, it depends. It depends on your lifestyle. Right?
And the most important thing is, if you don't know where to start, just start somewhere. Take even the smallest step, even if it's 1%, even if it's 0.5% of your money. You need to start to build those muscles. Too many people go through life thinking, oh, when I hit the lottery, when I get to my next job, when everything is right, when everything lines up perfectly, then I'll start saving for my future. But if you're waiting for everything to be perfect in your life to start saving, It's never going to happen. You're going to end up at 65, 70 years old, looking back on yourself right here, right now, today. You're going to be kicking yourself in the pants saying, why did you screw me over?
Truth. That is the truth. So moving on to number 8 at record pace, I might add, at record pace, you should never talk about money, right? We don't talk about money. It's like Fight Club. I mean, I shouldn't even said it. I really shouldn't.
Come on, man. First rule.
Edit that one out. Yeah, cut that one out for sure. So rule number 8, you should never talk about money. And why is that? Why is that? That's one of the lies that people say, that you shouldn't talk about money. It's kind of a sensitive subject.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why. I think, actually, you know what? Here's my thought, Chris, on why money is such a sensitive subject. And I believe that a lot of people attach how much they have to their worth. And they compare that number to other people of their peers. And they believe that, oh, because I chose maybe I chose to be a teacher, right? And my best friend chose to be an engineer, that I am somehow less than him because I don't have as much. He has a 7-bedroom, 4,000 or 5,000 square foot house. I have a 1,500 square foot house, right? So my worth is less.
Yeah.
You think that's kind of the idea, the psychology around it? I know you have a psychology background. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think in a capitalist society like we have, where everything is about the dollar, it's about the things that you can objectively measure. We have confused our net worth with our self-worth. And luckily, this money taboo, this we don't talk about money, being the lie, of course, it's changing. It's changing with the younger generations, which is really, really good. This is something that is passed down from our predecessors. What are the things you don't talk about? You don't talk about money, politics, and sex. But luckily, for our generation and for the younger generations, they're totally cool talking about these things because they realize our shared humanity. And when we talk about these things, we actually get to learn. Because when we avoid these difficult money conversations, they lead to financial ignorance, they lead to poor decisions, and they lead to relationship conflicts, both relationship with your spouse, with your partner, and relationship with your friends. Being afraid to talk about it is the issue. The only way that we can create financial literacy and empowerment is by learning from one another. But if everyone is hoarding knowledge, like a dragon, like, oh, I can't tell you what's going on in my life, no one ever grows. And I know people kind of understand that when I say like relationship with your spouse, that money issues happen. But how often do people go their entire life without talking to their partner about why they think the way they think about money? Talk to even their friends. How many friendships have maybe been derailed because one friend was afraid to tell their partner or tell their other friend, like, hey man, I can't go out with you to the bars. Not because I don't like you, but because I can't afford it. And people kept that anger inside, like, oh, this person's just ditching me. Another person's like, this person keeps on trying to put me out, and they don't understand that I can't afford to pay my rent and go out. When in truth, just having a conversation saying, hey, this is the reason. It's because of money. It's because of these things, because of what I'm going through. Then we can both share in humanity and maybe even grow from that. Maybe that friend could tell you, hey, there's this job that I know of or something like that. But if we hoard everything inside because we're afraid to not be enough, to be shown to not be a good person in some way because we tie our money to how good of a person we are, then none of us are ever going to grow. We're always going to stay stuck. We're always going to stay angry if we think that everyone else is better than us because we're all afraid to be the first person to show that, hey, I'm struggling too. Yeah. And that's what I really want to bring on this podcast, is show that a money professional, like I've been doing this for a long freaking time and I'm still on the journey and it doesn't go away. And you're on the journey. You're at a different place than I am. You're probably a few years behind me and you're struggling through it too. We're all struggling with it. No one reaches the end. It's just like, I've made it. I get to stay here forever. It's like eating a good meal. You can't have like the best meal and be like, I'm good. I'm staying here forever. I don't have to eat ever again because this meal was that good.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's true. I wish, because I had a pretty nice dinner last night. I wish I could just live in that dinner. That'd be really great for me. But, we live in a society that's so judgmental, and it's like a double-edged sword, because on one hand, you have the judgmental people and you have the judgmental fears, right? And oftentimes maybe the people aren't even as judgmental as you think. Maybe it's just you're judging yourself. You're afraid, right? And it's funny because on Friday, this is Monday's episode, but on Friday's episode, we end the podcast with a win of the week. Right? And I got my win of the week in early this week, and it has to do with fear and kind of flipping the script. And I'm just going to talk on it just a quick bit. I think it'll help a lot of people. But for me, myself, and I naturally am a very fearful person for some reason or another. I'm sure there's a deep psychological reason based on my childhood and all that, which we're not going to go into, right? But naturally, I tend on the side of fear. But from my side, it's an irrational fear because I'm also a degenerative gambler and I love the risk, right? But there's some truth to that, right? I do love the risk. I do love having skin in the game. But I've noticed that it's not so much the action that I fear. It's just the fear that I fear. Like Winston Churchill said, all we have to fear is fear itself. And it's so true. It's so true. And for me, what I've done is I've kind of had to reprogram the story in my mind. I've had to flip the script and say, what if it doesn't work out? What if I stay here and this is my life now? What if it, like, I have to go now. I have to I have to ask that businessman, hey, could we work together? Like I have to work with him. Because if I don't, I'm just going to stay here. And that's a scary thought because nothing changes if nothing changes. So I hope that you guys are kind of flipping the script on how you see things and questioning everything and making sure that every thought you have, or at least most of them, maybe a high percentage of them, are thoughts that are actually serving you. But with that being said, I mean, yeah.
I remember a long time ago, Dominic, we talked about how short life is. When you really think about the grand cosmos of everything, how short our small little life is. If you're lucky, you get 90 something years. If you're lucky, you get 102 years. And most of those years at the end probably aren't really living. We live on such a short time scale. So many people say, hey, if it's so short, then go ahead and do what you want to do. But then other people say, hey, if my life's so short, then I can suffer because it's short. I can just suffer the entire way through. So you can take both of these analogies that life is very, very short, and you can take the analogy that life is extremely long. If you knew that you had to live for another 2,000 years, 3,000 years, would you stay where you are right now? Would you be willing to suffer for another 2,000, 3,000 years? And if the answer is no, then why are you willing to suffer for another 20 years? You only have this one life. Maybe there's a life after this. I don't know. No one really knows. But we know for sure that we have this one. So try to make the best of it. And I get that it's scary. I get it because so many people conflate failing at something with being a failure. There's one guaranteed way to never hit your goals, and that's to never start. That's to never try to hit them. Yeah, you'll be safe in that you didn't suffer when you failed, but you're also going to suffer every day knowing that you didn't try. So you, as the individual, our listener, Dominic, myself, we get to choose every day how we want to suffer. Do we want to suffer in the fire of getting better? Do we want to suffer in trying to grow, in failing forward? Or do we want to suffer in the thought of what if? Every day looking back and thinking, man, I should have done this. I should have done this. I should have done this. I was very lucky in that I watched a video when I was younger. And in that video, people talked about their biggest regrets were things that they didn't do rather than things that they did and failed at. And that's something that I have too. I have fear. I have anxiety. I struggle with depression. I struggle with all of these things too. I'm not there. I'm never going to be there. I come to that realization. And that's okay, because the way we get better and the way we help people is through that fire, through getting better for yourself, not just for yourself, but for all of us as our common humanity.
You know, I've come to the realization as well that suffering is our salvation. And like you said, you know, you can either choose what happens to you or it's just going to happen to you, right? I know I didn't phrase that exactly how you said it, but it's kind of like the pain of discipline versus the pain of regret. It's like that Morpheus, choose which side you want, right? And when it comes to never talking about money, just because you don't talk about something doesn't mean it doesn't exist, right? In fact, I would go further to say that because you don't talk about something, it definitely exists. It exists even more. because you feel that anxiety and that stress and the buildup of, I don't know what's going on in our finances. And I know I don't know what's going on. And our family probably knows that I don't know what's going on. And that weighs on a person. And it's like that story about the buffalo, the difference between buffaloes and cows, right? When a cow sees a storm coming, the cow runs away. It runs away from the storm, and the storm is chasing it. When a storm comes in the buffalo's realm, the buffalo runs at the storm. And you might think, so like, what does this matter? Well, if you continue to run away from the storm or your problem, you're going to end up being in the problem more because you're going to be adjacent with the storm. But if you're the buffalo, you face the storm head on. You're not afraid of getting wet. You're not afraid of a little thunder. And you end up getting through it faster. So the quickest way to get out of your troubles, out of your problems, is to face it. Not looking up a motivational YouTube video, not going to ChatGPT, not XYZ. Let me change the lights. Let me fix the air, turn the fan. No, it's like the only swap for getting work done is literally just getting more work done. Like there's no substitute for getting work done, unfortunately. And trust me, Chris and I have tried. Right? Like it'd be great if we could like automate freaking everything. Like that'd be freaking awesome.
I've tried to procrastinate every way to Sunday to try to figure it out, and it just makes it worse every time.
Yep.
The writer of Dune, the Dune book series, he talks a lot about the Bene Gesserit, and those were like if you remember the book, or if you read the book, if you remember the movie, it was the Reverend Mothers, the females that are basically controlling the path of the universe and trying to move humanity to the next step. One of the big things that they talk about is that fear is the mind killer. If you watch Dune 1 or 2, or you watch the old ones, you read the book, you're going to hear that saying over and over and over again. Fear is the mind killer. And in the earlier versions of Dune, before Dune even happens, before Paul Atreides is born, before any of the sequence that we learn, if you go back to the early history, you learn about where the Bene Gesserit come from, where they started. And you realize that they got into a war with artificial intelligence at one point, and all of artificial intelligence was put away. It was like done. You can't use AI anymore because AI thought differently than us and decided like it needs to destroy human beings. It was basically Terminator.
Gotcha.
So at some point, the AI comes up with, and if I'm gonna spoil Dune Prophecy for some people. So if you're watching Dune Prophecy on HBO, leave or cut out for 10 seconds, come back in. But what ends up happening is that this AI creation creates an illness, a disease that infects the mind, and people fear that disease, so they try to run away from it. And the more that you try to fight the disease, the more that it creates your blood circulation. I don't remember what it does something biochemically that causes people to die. But the Bene Gesserit are able to figure out that the way to get through this disease is to face it head on, to not run away, but to go through it. Because if you go through the disease, then it works through you, and then it doesn't have its chance to destroy you over time. But if you stick with it, like that cow in the storm, well, with time, it destroys you. But if you move through it, as it moves through you, you move through it on the opposite vector, then we're able to make through it, and it doesn't harm us as much. It still hurts. Life still hurts, but it doesn't hurt as much. It doesn't destroy us.
I like that. That was a good quote. It was fear is the mind killer, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Yeah, I like that. That's solid. That's an interesting quote. That's a very interesting quote. Okay. So survival is the ability to kind of swim in strange waters. I like that. So
yeah, and remember that being brave isn't not being afraid. It's acting in spite of fear. You know, there is no difference between the boxer that gets into the ring, who is terrified of getting hurt, and the boxer who doesn't show up to the ring. The only difference is that one person succumbed to their fear and one person still showed up. They're both fearful. Like even like Tito Ortiz, one of the best UFC fighters or heavyweight fighters, there's stories of him being inside the locker room, crying, throwing up, terrified of what he had to go and do. Yet when he walked out into that ring every single night, you would never be able to tell. he would sit there. You know, I read a story about him recently where it was one of his last title fights. I think he was against Ken Shamrock, and Shamrock broke his ribs. Both of his ribs were broken. He was done. He went back to his corner for the final round, and he turns around and he looks at Ken Shamrock and he winks. He smiles and he winks. And at that point, I can't remember if it was Ken Shamrock or whoever it was, but the person like looked and was like, damn it, I lost. Even though Tito was like, I'm about to die. Like, I can't go another round. But by believing that he could, by just like showing and believing himself, by fighting through that fear, he was able to do it. You know, I always think of, everyone's seen Rocky.
Yeah.
Think of that first Rocky movie where Apollo's just beat the living hell out of Rocky for the last like 10 rounds. And then Rocky turns around, he looks at Apollo and he stands up, and Apollo just puts his head down. He's like, God damn it. And at that point, that's when Rocky wins. Because he fought through it. He fought through the pain. He wasn't afraid to lose. He didn't get in his head. He just kept on going until the other person chose to leave, chose to not try anymore. We all have that ability. You don't have to be a superhero. You don't have to be Rocky Balboa. You don't have to be Tito Ortiz. You just have to believe that you can.
It's funny. And, you know, I hate to do this because what you said triggered another thought in my mind, right? And we're just bouncing ideas off of each other based on pop culture references and books and movies we've really listened to. But David Goggins talks about that round 13 in Rocky 1. He calls it taking souls. Mm-hmm. And it's true, right? Sometimes the victory we seek isn't the one that's most memorable. And although Rocky would have loved to win that fight, his fight was, I just want to survive. And if I could survive those rounds with the world champion, that would be enough. Because nobody's gone the distance. And that's why I love that song from that scene, Going the Distance. I used to play it on loop, just like a madman. But it's true. I mean, sometimes you have to have a goal in your mind, and you don't even have to share it with anybody, but you know, it's like, man, today I didn't smoke today. Or maybe today I normally have a pack of cigarettes. Today I only had one cigarette. That was my victory today. Right? It wasn't total victory, but it was a victory. And I think we confuse battles with the overall war. You can lose battles and still win the war. And you can win battles and still lose the war, right? And I think it's important to celebrate those small wins, celebrate those battles that you win, and celebrate the ones that you lose. I think maybe I'm just sick like that, but I think it's so important for you to lose. I think it's so important for you to feel pain, right? Yesterday, I was at work in immense pain. My leg, for some reason, was just killing me. And rather than being woe is me, complaining, I just accepted the fact it's like, hey, I don't get to feel this emotion very often. Let's enjoy this emotion because it's new to us. And it's a different feeling than I'm used to. And it made me think of how appreciative I am for the pain and how appreciative I am for the health afterward. It's so important to appreciate everything, right?
Yeah, it's good sometimes when you're in pain, when you're out of health, because you realize that someone that is healthy, they want an infinite number of things. But a person that's not healthy wants one thing. And it gets to show you like how important that part is. You know, I talk about it so many times, but the two things that regardless if you want to interact with it or not interact with it, they will interact with you is your health and your wealth. You can choose to avoid it. You can choose to run away from the storm. But both your health and your wealth, regardless if you choose to run away from that storm your entire life, run through it, run at it, run away, run sideways, whatever way, that storm will catch you. You can't escape it. None of us can escape it. And that's just sometimes really difficult for people. You know, we were talking about winning or losing, and we've talked about this before, but I want to bring it up again. The difference between a finite game and an infinite game. So many of us, we play this game as if it is finite. If at the end there is a declared winner and loser. But just like in war is also an infinite game. War doesn't actually end. You know, we may have beaten the Nazis, we may have beaten the Japanese, we may have won these wars, but those are finite wars. The game is still played. There still are people in Germany. There are still people There's some people in Japan. We didn't go after genocide. No one wants to even do genocide. I don't think the genocide's the right way to do it. But even if we were to commit a complete genocide of a people, the game continues. We don't just like, okay, we won and now war is done, we have peace for the rest of our lives. It's not like that. So sometimes in life, like from a jiu-jitsu standpoint, from when I will go and roll with some people, my game is I'm just trying to play an infinite game. And that might mean that I lose, I get tapped out to somebody. But that's okay because my game is an infinite game. I just got better. When I won, I won. But when I lost, I learned. So every time you lose, you need to take something from that, reflect on it. And failure, losing, is the most data-rich stream of information you can get. You can take in so much information. Neurochemically, everything's going off to learn because your brain wants to keep you away from dying. Every time that you lose, you are closer to death in your brain's mind because it takes everything that's happening, even little spites, as if they are, life and death. It thinks you're on the Serengeti back in the day. It doesn't know that you're in modern day, that you have an iPhone, that there's a McDonald's on every street, and that people don't get into fights very often. It's still playing that same operating system. You have like a meat operating system that's running in the background. And you have to ask yourself, is that operating system that's playing, is it true? Is it serving me? Is it getting me to be where I want to be? I don't know how we got to here based off you should never talk about money, but I'm glad that we did.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And just some final thoughts on that. I know you guys clicked on this video, this podcast to talk about money lies, and we appreciate that. But here at the Fi Guys, we love to talk about the psychology of money, the personal side of personal finance, and really kind of get into what money is about. What is money? Is it a piece of paper or is it your life's energy? So kind of when you hear us talking about this, don't think it's like, oh, these guys are just off on a tangent. It's like, no, guys, all of it's connected. Everything we just talked about is directly or indirectly correlated to money and finance and just living a better life. Right. I would love to stay on this and just, talk about different quotes and different things, but we should talk about number 9. Now, number 8, if you were paying attention, that was the lie that you should never talk about money, right? We know that to be very false, right? You should always talk about everything, right? Don't be afraid. Sometimes things can get a little bit scary, but fear's in the mind and danger is real. And
I'm going to correct one thing.
Yes, please.
You don't want to always talk about everything. You want to often talk about everything. Don't use the word always.
Okay.
Use the word always.
Fair. Yeah,
Remember, the words we use have power.
The words we use have power. Agreed. Yes. Often. Especially if you've never done it. Just a little bit, right?
A little bit.
Just a little bit.
All right. So number 9. This is a biggie. People come to me as a financial advisor all the time for this one. You need to be an expert in order to invest. That is a huge money lie that everyone has in their head, that somehow the financial advisors, the financial experts have some profound knowledge. They know what the future holds. They know for certain what the stock market's going to do tomorrow, next week, next year. And if I just found the right financial advisor, the right person who could predict the future, the right prophet, then they would be able to lead me to the promised land. The truth is, investing isn't just for Wall Street professionals. It's not just for people with a decade of experience. Index funds, simple passive strategies can build wealth over time, and they require zero expertise. All they provide is your willingness to try and your belief that it will work out.
100%. Your willingness to try and your belief that it will work out. There's this quote that's kind of been stirring around in my head recently, and it goes a little bit something like this. You only know how far you can go if you're willing to go too far. And so often we keep fear front and center because, like Chris said, right, we got this many thousands of year old brain that still thinks we're on the savannah and still thinks we're hunting and all this fun stuff, right? I want to say that it's scary to invest sometimes. It's scary to ask that person out. It's scary to go in for a job interview. But if you can feel the fear and do it anyway, you're going to be worlds ahead of everyone else. Because everyone else is feeling the same exact emotion as you. And if you look at people who are successful, they just understood how to control their fear. And I believe that everybody can control their fear. I think everybody can reach their fullest potential. And I hope that, I got to read one more finance book. I haven't read that Ray Dalio book yet. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad back in the day, but I still need to do XYZ. It's like, no. Pause. There's a difference between learning and taking action. You can read every book. Doesn't mean you're going to be a great investor, right? Because you still have to take the action. So make sure you're actually taking the action and investing in yourself and your future. So many people aren't. And I hope that you are. And I hope that stresses you out a little bit to take some action.
I mean, I can't tell you from someone when I first heard about how to invest, like, oh, you can just go on to like any account. You can buy like an index of like the S&P 500. I remember not knowing any of these. I remember watching a YouTube video and like having a sticky note and write down S&P 500, not knowing what that meant, not knowing how to buy it, not knowing a ticker symbol, not understanding any of it. And then after I learned that, I began to believe like, oh, well, if that's the easy part, then I need to learn the harder version. So I went into value investing. I learned quant investing. I learned options trading. I learned all of these different investments to eventually come back to the starting point of where I started at the beginning to realize that, oh, wait, every single way that I worked, that I learned, they all work on a long enough time scale. But what way is right for me? What way am I willing to commit to through the ups, through the downs? How do I want to suffer? Do I want to suffer in options trading where, yeah, I'm making more money, but I'm also having to be constantly anxious, constantly in fear, constantly at my computer doing stuff? Do I want to be value investing where I'm constantly reading 10Ks, 10Qs, constantly listening to earning reports, trying to predict the future as to where this company is going to go in 10, 20, 30 years? Do I want to suffer that way? Do I want to suffer from a quant style where I'm trying to somehow take in with my computer all of these different algorithms to say like, oh, if it's this degree in Dubai, then that means that this is going to happen to these oil prices, and then all of these things to make up to some crazy algorithm that works? Or do I want to suffer in the way that my account's going to go up and down? I have given control over to the universe, given it up to all humanity to try to advance civilization. The volatility is a fee for riding. It's not a fine. It's a fee for riding the roller coaster. And I just have to be okay with that. And I suffer in that way, but I don't have to suffer in thinking. I get to suffer in, yes, it's going up and down and I'm afraid of it. But even if I chose any of those other strategies, it's going to go up and down and be afraid of it. At least with my strategy, I get to go and enjoy my life, live whatever's happening. How many times have my clients or someone reached out like, oh my God, the stock is falling. The stock market just dropped 3%. You're a money expert. What's happening? And I just go, I have no idea. I'm living my life. I'm out here drinking a pina colada with my dogs. Like my life's going great. And people get upset with me. Like, well, I thought you were a financial expert. You should know exactly what's happening. A few weeks ago, a Chinese hedge fund created DeepSeek. And they were released DeepSeek. DeepSeek came on to the App Store, and then all of a sudden came on, and it was a new AI model. And what these hedge fund managers said was that they were able to create DeepSeek for a substantially cheaper way without having to use all of the microprocessing chips. So once DeepSeek came out on our app, and we found out that the Chinese were able to make it, and they made it for substantially cheaper without having to use all of the processing chips, the stock market fell like 6%. And that's because the story of NVIDIA got scary. NVIDIA makes up, like 8%, 6% of the S&P 500 right now. There's like 5-6 companies that make up over 30% of the index. Kind of scary, but it is what it is. So did anything change in NVIDIA's business? No. NVIDIA was still working, still making its thing, yet the stock market tanked by 6% because people were afraid that this new AI model might change things. Nothing has changed in any way, shape, or form. People are freaking out about what's going on in China, what's happening with AI. How is the world going to change? And I'm just sitting here vacuuming my house, having a great day, listening to podcasts.
Yeah.
So you can choose how you want to suffer or choose to not suffer at all. You do not need to be an expert to invest. The easiest strategy, the strategy that we espouse here on the Fly Guys, is set it and forget it. Focus more on making money, focus more on spending less money. 80% of being good with money are going to be in those two things: making money, spending less money. The investing side, if you do it the right way, will take care of itself. If you believe that it will, and if you get the hell out of its way. And if you need help with that, if you want a better strategy, you can always reach out to me. Reach out to Chris at monzonwealth.com. That's MONZON wealth, common spelling.com. Set up a complimentary meeting with me, and we can talk about what's right for you. Because like I said, I've learned so many different strategies for investing, and they all work. You have to ask yourself, how do I want to suffer? No trade-offs or no solutions, only trade-offs. How do you want to trade off? What are you willing to trade off?
And that's what life is, right? It's all about trade-offs, especially in finance, right? It's almost, I mean, synonymously, yeah, finance and trade-offs are literally, that's what money is. It's a trade-off. It's just kind of ironic, right? We're trading our time for money. But I love that you don't need to be an expert anymore to invest. I love that you can buy an index fund and set it and forget it and contribute to it and do all these things. And if you need help, you can go to people like Chris. Such a beautiful world that option is available for us, right? So I want to get on to number 10, get as many as we can done. I think number 10, do you want to read this one out? You want me to read this one?
Yeah, I got it. So okay. Number 10, I hear this one a lot. A high credit score means that you are financially healthy. If you have a high credit score, you are good with money. How do you feel about that when I say that? How does that make you feel? Because most people are like, well, yeah, obviously, like, come on, like, they are causational and correlational. Like one makes the other. And one thing that I learned from science is that causation or correlation does not equal causation. You know, more people eat ice cream during the summer months. It's not that, or there are more ice cream men out during the summer. Causation versus correlation.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true, right? And I wish that there was a metric, maybe a grading scale, 1 to 1,000, right? That it takes everything into account: your age, your health, your wealth, you know, how your relationship's doing. I wish there was like a master number to say how well you're doing, but unfortunately there's just not. And yeah, credit score, I mean, it's easy to manipulate. Like, you don't have to have $1 million to have an 800 credit score, right? You can have $800 and theoretically have an 800 credit score. So I don't want to downplay the importance of a credit score. Obviously, it's important, right? You don't want to just like, screw it. Like, I'm just going to tank it. It's whatever. Like, no, you should definitely like work on your credit score. You know, good financial habits, good financial hygiene, all that fun stuff, right? Make sure you're paying your bills on time. You know, we have so many episodes on credit cards and credit card hacking. I'm not going to go too much into it, but you guys understand, right? That just because you have maybe a 750 and you're like, hey, I'm good financial standings. Maybe you are, but what's your debt to income, right? How much is going out versus how much is coming in? How much are you saving, right? Are you planning for the future? Are you investing? There's so much to think about. And while having a credit score that's high is great, it's a great indicator that you are able to take on more credit, maybe. I would not use it as the only metric for being financially healthy. It's just the most talked about metric.
Yeah. You know, I kind of think of this like it is a metric. So it could be like you go to your doctors just for your general checkup. Yeah. And you come in and maybe you're really overweight. You're like, oh man, I'm really overweight. I don't feel good. My arteries are clogged. My heart hurts. You know, I just don't feel good. My joints hurt all the time. And then your doctor, they do a VO2 max test to see like how well is your blood oxygenated and get into your blood. They're like, hey, well, based off your VO2 max, you're as healthy as a horse. Like you should be totally fine. I don't know what you're talking about. Like your VO2 max is good, so you're good. It's the exact same thing for this. There are so many parts of being financially healthy, just like being physically healthy. If you want to look at just one metric, though, and try to judge everything based off of one metric, there's a really good chance that one metric can lead you astray in so many ways, because in truth, a credit score only measures how well you manage debt. But how well you manage debt is not your actual financial health. It's not the bigger picture. It is a small part of the bigger picture. There are people that are debt-free, financially independent, don't need anything, who have low credit scores because they're not taking out credit, because they're not doing anything. They're just paying off their credit cards in full. Maybe they don't even have credit cards. Maybe they're just using everything from straight cash positions. They were able to inherit a house. They have nothing. They have nothing that could be taken from them. And they could have a 400 credit score because they don't, or not a 400, but like a 500 credit score because nothing shows it. When there's other people who are making good money, maybe $60,000, maybe $100,000, who have student loans, who have mortgage loans, who have car payments, who have credit card debt, who are making minimum payments on all of these, who are literally losing their job or getting injured away from severe distress, and they could have 800 credit scores. It is just one measure of your overall health, but it is not the measure of overall health.
Yep.
I don't know what the measure is. I don't think there is one. The measure is probably how you feel about it. That's probably the best measure. Is how do you feel? Can you go to bed at night? Are you concerned about it? Credit score is important, but it's not the only important thing. But it is a good proxy, but only a proxy. It's not the actual fight.
I love that. I think that's I can't say anything more about that one. That's perfect. That is perfect. So that was number 10. And I can't believe we made it. We've made it to number 10. I almost don't believe it. There's what, 17 so far?
There's 17. So
are we gonna add any more? I know you've been thinking and meditating on it, and
I have no idea. We have 17 right now. We might just stick with this. I mean, I'm going to go on vacation starting next week. So maybe if I think of more, but what I think we will do is hit one more on this podcast. Then we can recap on Monday or on Friday, think about it a little bit more. Maybe we can hit the other 5 or so on next Monday's podcast. So this is a really, really big one. And I know that I've said that every single lie, every money lie thus far, but the reason I say they're big ones is because so many people believe it and they go through their whole life operating under the assumption of these lies. And sometimes these lies that they don't even begin to question are the thing that's holding them back. The truth that they truly believe is, if I do these things, I will be happy, I'll be successful, I'll be these things. Those things that you don't even question are often the things that are holding you back. But you take it as truth and you don't know what truth is. Number 11. If you work hard, you'll be rich.
nope, that's not it. And I think that's one of the first things that most kids kind of understand in life. It's like, if I work hard, go to school, get a degree, I'll be rich. Maybe not. You know, why isn't the construction worker a billionaire? Why isn't the nurse a millionaire? You know, I've seen teachers teach. That is a tough job. That sucks. That sucks. I can't even get my cat wrangled in, right? We go to bed. Hey, I can't even do that. I can't imagine 20 little children. No, thank you. That's a tough job. Right? Hard work doesn't mean you'll be rich. Not saying you can't be a teacher and be rich. It's definitely possible, right? But hard work doesn't equal rich. But it's, would you say it kind of accompanies it, at least, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't want to
does.
throw hard work completely under the bus. It's like, hey, guys,
No.
let's just be lazy. Let's be lazy bastards today. Like, nah. It's like, hard work is still very important, right?
You can't, because both things are true simultaneously, right?
Yeah.
But with money, it's so difficult because everything in our life, our school system, everything correlates effort with the outcome. Effort and outcome are always correlated. And for most of life, that works. There are people that are genetic freaks that just come out the womb. You know, they're going to be 8th grade, 6'4" with a mustache, you know, and they're already going to be like really good football players. And they're already going to come out to be like a genetic freak. And that's awesome for them. And they have to put in good work to make it to the NFL. Like, you have to do both of these things. But for so much of life, like, yeah, the amount of effort I put in is pretty much, if not directly, you know, maybe like a 0.8%, if you're looking like a correlation as to the outcome I get. If I work harder, if I study more, I will get a better grade on the test. If I work harder at running, if I work harder at jumping, if I work harder at whatever, I will get better outputs. But in money, it's not like that. Working hard alone isn't enough, because you could be the hardest worker in the world. That doesn't mean that you have the right strategy, the right financial literacy, and more importantly, the biggest thing, the right opportunities. The right luck is what plays the biggest role in your wealth building. Because there could be 2 people who walk in for a construction job. two people, maybe they're exact same person. And when one person walked in, they interview exactly the same. And just due to sheer dumb luck, the person across from you one day when they did the interview just got a divorce from his wife. Really upset. Gives you the job and he's like, F this person. I'm upset. I'll give you $10 an hour just because I'm upset. And the person's like, okay, fine, I'll take it. The next day, next person comes in, exact same interview, has the same answers to the questions. Well, maybe the person across the table, they just got back together with their wife. They're feeling on top of the world, so happy. They're like, you know what? For you, I'm feeling really good today. I'm going to give you $100 an hour. Both things happened. Both things were true. You put in hard work. Both people put in the same amount of hard work. They had the same strategy, same everything. So much of it came down to sheer dumb luck of the opportunity. And it's kind of scary to think that the majority of life, majority of being good with money, majority of everything that you have was based on sheer dumb luck, because it means that everything means something and nothing means something.
And where do we go from there? Where do we go from there? I think it's so important to learn how to deal with hard work and how to enjoy hard work, how to be a hardworking person. And I think it's very important to take a step back and look at your moves and make smart moves, right? And then combine those. If you can work hard and work smart, dude, that's evil. That's super villain stuff. That's super power stuff. Like, most people just work hard and they don't want to work smart. And I think
I would say most people don't even work hard. Most people just want to show up.
Yeah.
I just want to show up. I mean, how many times have we heard of people saying, like, why should I have to both go to work and do my best? Like, I show up. Like, that's good enough. But when you come up against the person who is showing up and working hard, they're going to win. And then when you find the person who is showing up, working hard and working smart, they're going to win. At the end of the day, this is all a power game. Whoever has the most power wins. And I know we don't like to think about that in our society because we believe that we've put that power away, that power doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how rich you are, how wealthy you are, how everything. If everything is taken away from you, how are you going to make it? That is by power. That is by falling asleep, envisioning the world as it is today, changing it, wanting it to be a different way, waking up, going and acquiring the skills, the talent, and the mindset to see that world through, to create that world that is not today. That is true power.
I think with that being said, do you have any final thoughts for today's episode, Chris?
No. I'd like to open us up with on Friday, I'm going to open us up with a story about the role of luck in life, because I think a lot of people, they don't realize how much their life is shaped by luck.
Honestly, I think that could be a full podcast too. How luck shapes your life and how you can create some of your luck as well. Well, I'm excited for Friday's episode, and I hope you guys are as well. Don't forget, if you're not already subscribed on our YouTube channel, feel free to hit that subscribe button. And if you're not following us on the different podcast platforms that we are currently on, all the Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, even Spotify. Can you believe it? Even Spotify. If you love Spotify, go take a listen over there and give us a 5-star review. We really appreciate it. Make sure to share the podcast with a friend, because let's be honest, going on this financial journey is so much more fun when you have a friend, a compadre, a amigo to go with you. So with that being said, and my Spanish lessons popping up again, I must return to my Mexican heritage that I so wish I had. I'm about as pasty as it comes. But with that being said, enough funny business. I'm Dom. He's Chris. We're the Five Guys, and we'll see you guys on Friday. Later, guys.
Later.
Peace.
This video podcast is sponsored by Monzon Wealth. The content in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. We do not endorse specific products or services. Past performance does not guarantee future results. The opinions expressed are those of the hosts and guests, not the podcast sponsor.
It is crucial to consult with a qualified financial advisor or professional who can provide advice tailored to your specific needs before making any financial decisions, investments, or taking any other actions. If you are seeking specified help, you can reach out to Chris at monzonwealth.com.